Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Billy Wilder Theater. I'm Claudia Bester. I'm the Director of Public Programs here at the Hammer Museum. As you all know, I'm sure, director John Singleton passed away last April at the age of 51, and his death was a major cultural loss for cinema. He showed America a side of itself with unflinching honesty, centering on Black people's realities, dreams, and nightmares. We're celebrating Singleton with a short series of films that explore his dynamic visions of Black life and his pioneering efforts to broaden Hollywood's lens. The series was curated by critic and writer Ernest Hardy, who also co-curated the very well-received series The Black Book here at the Hammer with his colleague Tisa Bryant. Tonight we're screening the 1993 film Poetic Justice, starring Janet Jackson, Tupac Shakur, and Regina King, with poetry by Maya Angelou. The film was made in 1993, and it's about an hour and 49 minutes long. So our series curator, Ernest Hardy, is going to say a little bit about John Singleton and Poetic Justice, and then we'll play the film. Ernest Hardy's criticism has appeared in the New York Times, The Village Voice, Vibe, Rolling Stone, the LA Times, and the LA Weekly. He's a contributor to the reference books 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die and classic material, The Hip Hop Album Guide. His collection of criticism, Blood Beats Volume 1, Demos, Remixes, and Extended Versions, was a recipient of the 2007 Pen Beyond Margins Award. Blood Beats Volume 2, The Bootleg Joints, was published in February 2008. Ernest has sat as a juror for the Sundance Film Festival, the San Francisco International Film Festival, the Palm Springs International Short Film Festival, Los Angeles Outfest, and the Los Angeles Film Festival, and he co-programmed the Fusion Film Festival here in Los Angeles. His essay, Arthur Jafa's Monstrous Cinema, appears in Jafa's monograph, a series of utterly improbable yet extraordinary renditions. Ernest has profiled Jordan Peele, Barry Jenkins, and Ryan Coogler for Written By Magazine, and he's written liner notes for Chuck D. Presents Louder Than a Bomb, Curtis Mayfield Gospel, Chet Baker Career 1952 to 1988, and the box sets Love Luther, Say It Loud, a celebration of Black music in America, and Superstars of 70s Soul, among others. He co-edited the literary anthology War Diaries, which was published in 2001. His short story, Cold and Wet, Tired You Bet, appears in Best Gay Stories 2011, and two of his poems appear in the anthology Black Gay Genius on Joseph Beam and In the Life from 2015. Ernest currently teaches in the Critical Studies Department at Cal Arts. His forthcoming collection of short stories will be published by Writ Large Press, and I hope he will finish soon because his publisher is anxiously awaiting the manuscript, and I'm hoping that when he's finished, he'll come back and do the Black Book here at the Hammer again. Please join me in welcoming Ernest Hardy.
Thank you. When Claudia and I were talking about this retrospective, I told her that I knew I couldn't talk about the films the way I would if I were teaching them in my class, but I wasn't interested in simple hagiography. I didn't want to simply gush about brilliance and genius and so forth. I'm a big believer that if we consider someone an artist, if we consider them a game changer of form and discipline, then we have to talk about not only their triumphs, but their missteps, where they fumbled, where they fucked up. Because not only is that often where the artist learns the most about their own craft and art, from their missteps, from those things that didn't quite hit the mark, but those conversations for the audience can sometimes be more productive and far more generative about art and its meanings and possibilities than simply singing an artist's praises. I wanted to show Poetic Justice because I think it's a misstep in a lot of ways. I think it shows a young artist whose reach exceeded his grasp. And I think we learn a lot from looking at where and how he falls short, and then looking at that in the context of his overall career and balancing it all against those times he landed on his mark. Poetic Justice, John Singleton's second film, released in 1993, and a Golden Globe and Academy Award nominee for the song Again, is a love story, a road trip movie, a story of friendship between women. It's a story filled with and propelled by loss, grief, all manner of violence, depression, anger, and justifiable but unfocused, misdirected rage that manifest in ways large and small. As a film, It's a time capsule of fashion, music, and aesthetics, but also of the places and ways that Black folks gather for play, for romance, for family gatherings. In the film, we see Janet Jackson, Tupac, and Q-Tip in the full bloom of their youthful beauty, and we would later get a sleeker, more artsy take on Janet and Q-Tip as a couple some years later when they teamed up for Janet's classic 1997 single and video, Got Till It's Gone. Here's what I find interesting about the film. The way it depicts the beauty shop as a woman-owned and centered realm of power and empowerment, of the caretaking and acknowledgement of women. We would see Billy Woodruff's 2005 film Beauty Shop, starring Queen Latifah, build on this idea. Both Beauty Shop and the Barbershop franchise show those spaces to be politically layered, culturally charged gathering spots for Black men and women. And Poetic Justice gets at something of that. I'm still baffled, though, as to what Singleton was after with the quasi-queer character in the beauty shop and the weird way he goes mute at a moment of possible grief or trauma. The second thing I like about the film is the casting. Jessie, the beauty shop owner, is played by the underrated Tyra Farrell, who we saw last week in Boys in the Hood. Her assistant Maxine is played by the underrated soul singer Mickey Howard. Actor, writer, performance artist John Guinevere Smith, who some of you might recognize from Do the Right Thing, appears as the previously mentioned hairdresser. And there's also Joe Torre, Clifton Collins, and Tone Loc. In his casting, as I said last week, Mr. Singleton did what so many Black filmmakers have done for decades. Not only built his own in-house acting crew that he cast repeatedly, but also casting actors who may not have been acknowledged by white Hollywood or the mainstream white movie-going public, but who were well known and beloved by Black people. As an aside, there's also a cameo by Renee Elizondo, who at the time of the film was the professional collaborator and secret husband of Janet Demita Jo Jackson, DeBarge Jackson, Elizondo Jackson, Almost Dupree Jackson, Almana Jackson. Janet was arguably the largest pop star in the world at that moment. And like so many Black American women in music, she is simultaneously a global pop icon and under-recognized for the ways she shaped the cultural landscape. Then there's Regina King's performance. As Aisha, Regina King transcends the loud, neck-swiveling Black girl on the page, especially in one moment in particular. There's a scene of sexual coupling that could have been played just for laughs. Aisha rolls her eyes at the start of it, and that could have been the single note Miss King played for that moment. But then the actress pushes beyond that and almost looks on the verge of tears. She brings hints of sadness and darkness and something of Aisha's disconnect from her own life, or her attempts to disconnect from her own life. You have to look quickly. The camera doesn't linger to take it all in. But Miss King provides us a rich context for the nonstop drinking and boisterous behavior we've seen from Aisha throughout the film, and it makes you long for what the film could have been in more seasoned hands. Here's an excerpt from the interview, A Conversation with Arthur Jafa, conducted by Bell Hooks and found in her 1996 book, Real to Real. So throw your tomatoes at Miss Hooks, not me. So Miss Hooks says, "Can we talk more about why a film like Poetic Justice doesn't work?" Poetic Justice was an exciting concept. Lots of viewers were totally wanting to see a Black love story. What makes a film like that fail? We make these constant comparisons between where Black people have gone in terms of music, other forms, certainly in terms of jazz. Why is it that we seem to be so stuck in film and are unable to imagine Black heterosexuality as transgressive or interesting in any film we could name? To which Arthur Jafa responds, "There are some obvious structural limitations. As you said earlier, Hollywood is not conducive to any kind of exploration of human interrelationships with any kind of sophistication. It's just exacerbated when they feel like there's not even a market for those explorations. The other thing is, quite frankly, John Singleton is a very, very, very young man who's trying to accomplish some things that he hasn't yet had the life experience to do. It's the immaturity of the filmmaker. Don't think that's an accident on a certain level. Boys in the Hood was clearly coming out of some familiar lived experience, whereas when you go to Poetic Justice, you definitely feel it's conjecture. That's not an accident. Then he gives a really great sports analogy that I think is insightful and biting and just sort of tells you everything. He says, when the Major League Baseball teams decided that they were going to integrate the all-white Major League, they didn't go to the Negro Baseball League and get Satchel Paige or Josh Gibson or somebody like that who was proven at that point. Who did they go get? They go get Jackie Robinson. And this is not a critique of Jackie Robinson's skills as an athlete, because obviously he was a superstar, and he turned out to be a great, great choice. But one of the reasons that they chose him had absolutely nothing to do with skills, which to a large degree weren't yet tested. It had to do with the degree to which they could control Jackie Robinson as a young man who had had very limited experience in terms of the world at large. They could bring him in and basically create him in their own image, in a sense, contain him. And then Miss Hooks delivers the body blow. She says, white supremacy creates a situation where white people worship at the throne of black mediocrity. And that means it will always seek to nurture that which is half formed in the black expressive culture over that which does demonstrate some quality of vision, illumination, what have you. As I said, throw your tomatoes at Miss Hooks. Typical, right? Hiding behind a woman. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was in an interview conducted with Mr. Singleton earlier this year, just 2 months before he died, actually, in the Daily Beast, he was asked to speak about poetic justice and how he felt about it. And these were his words. It was the first and I guess only time I've had a female protagonist as the lead character in a picture. I wanted to do something very different with my second movie. I was young and just starting my career and had to make a mark. It was an interesting time for me as a filmmaker and storyteller. I look at that stuff now like, okay, that's where I was in my early 20s. That's how I was thinking in my early 20s. I was trying to work it out, and I appreciate being allowed to work it out. Now you don't get a chance to learn on the job. I learned on the job. I had the chance to have triumphs and mistakes and learn from those mistakes by making films, and I'm very grateful for it. So, as I said, I thought it was important to show this film because I think that so often, especially in the current cultural climate, criticism is either complete annihilation or it is pure hagiography. And we lack nuance and we lack layered interpretations of art and artists. And no artist, no matter how sublime, is ever flawless throughout their career. I mean, I was thinking about this this morning. Think how great it would be if we could actually get an essay on Beyonce that truly grappled with her art and her vision, instead of what we get, which is either hit pieces from people who clearly have some other agenda in play, or these horrible, insufferable essays where the person is clearly auditioning to be Beyonce's best friend, right? And I think if you really consider yourself a fan of this woman and her work, if you really respect her, then you will subject her to the same rigor that artists have always been subjected to. And that was my thinking when curating this retrospective. You know, we saw Boys in the Hood last week. We're going to see Rosewood next week and Too Fast, Too Furious the week after. But I really wanted to look at Poetic Justice. And I think Mr. Singleton's own words are really revealing when he said, this is the only film that had a woman as the lead character. And, you know, I know that quite often when we talk about a lot of male writers or screenwriters, we say so often that a lot of male writers don't know how to write women, right? My feeling about that has always been, if you don't know how to write women, then I'm really suspicious about your depictions of men, right? Because what are you either glorifying or overlooking in men, in your male characters? You know, if you can't look at women and put them on the page and put them on the screen in 3D, then I don't trust that you're giving us men in 3D either, right? And I think you get some of that as well in this film. I wish I found Bell Hooks saying that. But anyway, I do hope that you get something from the film. I do hope that the things that I pointed out as being interesting, at least to me, might strike a chord with you in some way. The beauty shop, Regina King's performance, and the way in which it starts out kind of one note, and then she puts this really beautiful twist on it in that one moment. And then just seeing Tupac and Janet and Q-Tip, in their youthful glory. So please enjoy the film, um, and come back next week. Thank you.